Hello and welcome. I'm Leigh-Ann Gerrans and you're watching W News Extra, broadcasting live from the Arabiya studios. These are our top stories. Trilateral talks between Russia, Ukraine and the US take place in Geneva as North Korea honors its soldiers killed fighting for Russia. Meanwhile, Iran's foreign minister prepares for talks with the United States as its military carrier is spotted near the coast of Oman. And as the T20 Cricket World Cup continues, so does the political rivalry between India versus Pakistan. Now, Ukraine says its negotiators have left Kyiv for trilateral talks in Geneva as diplomatic efforts continue alongside ongoing fighting. The move comes as North Korean leader Kim Jong-un publicly honored soldiers from North Korea who died fighting for Russia in Ukraine, describing them as martyrs. Meanwhile, at the Munich Security Conference, Western officials discussed new allegations surrounding the death of Russian opposition leader Alexei Navalny. According to intelligence assessments, Navalny may have been killed using a toxin derived from dart frogs, an extremely rare and highly lethal substance. To discuss this and all of today's stories, I'm joined by broadcaster Jono and senior presenter at Arabiya English, Rawia Alami. Rawia and Jono, great to have you on the show with me. So, Jono, this was making headlines the whole weekend, really. It was the centrepiece of the Munich Security Conference. What more do we know about this dart frog toxin that allegedly was used to kill Alexei Navalny, of course, the opposition leader once in Russia?
So it does seem like something directly out of a storybook. The entire allegation centres around this toxin, which, as you said, is derived from poisoned dart frogs, but specifically the compound is similar to Bactria Toxin, which is one of the most deadly and most potent neurotoxins that we know about. So it is found in South American frogs, and it works by basically locking sodium channels in nerve cells completely open, which renders you, within hours, as someone who's likely to have died. In simple terms, it overwhelms the nervous system, leads to paralysis. Cardiac arrest is most likely what follows from this as well. And the allies of Navalny have said that there's traces of this, and this is what we've heard. Traces of this rare toxin were identified, and you might think this is really difficult because it's a very sophisticated method. It's extremely difficult to detect something like this quickly, which is why we've had to wait so long. And the key point politically isn't just the science, it is the symbolism here as well. If it's true, then this means it's a very highly specialized toxic agent that has reinforced that long-standing, as we know, the accusations of the use of exotic poisons in Russian political cases. We've heard about this before many times. There's no independently verified public confirmation of this exact substance just yet. And of course, Russia and the Kremlin have vehemently denied that any such thing has happened. But weirdly, Russian scientists published a paper in 2013 which actually described synthesizing this epibaptine, which is similar to what the toxin is that's used there. So the scientists that are employed work at the State Research Institute of Organic Chemistry and Toxicology and Technology. And they're the same company the same research institute who developed the Novichok toxin, which we know is, of course, one of the most toxic agents that is out there before the breakup of the Soviet Union. So to find it in humans, very, very difficult. It's a very specialized toxicology screening. It's not like some of the rest of the very, very well-known ones like arsenic. It won't just show up. It can be sent to a handful of laboratories around the world who will then specifically test for this toxin, screen for it, and if they discover it, then they can return it back, which means that the tissue samples were taken. We don't know exactly how, but we do know the tissue samples were taken out of Russia and sent to either the US or the UK for this specific toxicology screening.
And it's going to be really interesting when we find out how those tissue samples were taken out of Russia. We know Alexei Navalny, of course, died there. But as you say, the Kremlin is strongly rejecting the European assessment. Navalny died of poisoning. But we also have to look historically back when it comes to Navalny, because he was also on a flight to Russia. He went down very ill. He went to Germany for specialist treatment. treatment. It was an emergency, fell very sick on this plane and had Novichok poisoning. So he survived that poisoning. Russia always denied it. We also have the Skripals who were in England, Novichok again, once again traced back to the Russians. So it's not the first time
They've had form with this,
that these accusations have been...
And they've always denied it. I mean, as you said, this is not the first time that they've been accused of poisoning opposers and opposers to the regime and to Vladimir Putin. Yet they always deny it. And always, especially in this case, at least with Navalny, they say there's no proof. And of course there wouldn't be any proof because they basically hold the evidence. They hold the body. Navalny died in Russia, he was buried in Russia, and obviously they hold all the evidence. So it is quite interesting, as you said, how were the tissue taken out of Russia?
Yep.
And now after 2 years of him being dead, so...
I mean, they may have
all
checked for
legitimate
every
questions.
possible option. You would have had a look, and again, any tox screening will check for arsenic or for an opioid or a cyanide, but specifically, and this is a very, very difficult thing to do, is to check specifically for that.
Yeah.
It would have taken some time. They may have run through 15, 20 other different toxins with those tissue samples first before they were able to, and it's a spectrometry which has to happen before they can figure out what it is. It's an incredibly deep case to try and dig in.
And also very interesting that the Europeans and their allies obviously announced this at the Munich Security Conference. Navalny's wife was there, and it's all quite symbolic at that time, especially at the conference. But also, if we have a look right now, we can't forget that even though we have these allegations levelled at Russia at the moment, there's trilateral talks happening. Of course, you know, we're seeing Russia, the US and Ukraine all meeting to discuss the end of the war, which is still ongoing. And we can't forget Ukraine is having its own problems when it comes to this corruption scandal that keeps on bubbling up. We keep on hearing about it, Rawia.
Absolutely. Now, for 15 months, there's talk about this corruption scandal in Ukraine. Now, the latest about this is that the former energy minister, apparently, his name is German Galushenko, was detained as he was trying to leave the country by train. So this is the latest development. Of course, this is all part of a major anti-corruption investigation called Operation Midas. It started 15 months ago, and the investigators, they alleged that about $100 million were embezzled from the energy sector in Ukraine. They're saying that all the companies that were working with Ukrainian Energo Atom company were required to pay bribes. These bribes were reaching up to 10 or 15% of the value of the actual contract. And of course, all the money was channeled to specific officials in this corruption scandal. And also the money was laundered and moved out of Ukraine. Even there's talk that it was moved to Russia. So these are the details of this so far. Yet, I mean, there was a lot of pressure on President Zelensky to deal with this issue. With the corruption issue from the West, especially from President Donald Trump. There were demands that there should be general elections held in Ukraine. And if you remember, at the time, President Zelensky said, yes, I'm ready and prepared to do these elections only if the Constitution allows it, which the Constitution doesn't allow it because it is the time of their
And interesting, when his right-hand man had to leave the job,
yes,
all wrapped up in the same corruption scandal.
True, even though he was not there was no evidence linking him to this corruption scandal.
I found it quite interesting because once again, elections were mentioned there, and Zelensky also said, well, Russia will have to have a ceasefire if that's going to happen, because people need to be safe when they go to the voting booth. But it is so interesting because I watched a lot of analysis on Ukraine this weekend, and a lot of Ukrainian MPs are saying, no, we actually don't want elections. We feel like this corruption scandal has been handled well. He's now been detained. He's going to fight he's going to have the justice system, which is what Ukrainians are looking for. So I guess it's two swords, isn't it?
And I guess Ukraine right now is focusing, like Rawia said, on the war effort more than anything else. Zelensky, in terms of being a wartime leader, has done a pretty good job, and Ukrainians overall, although his satisfaction rating, and we spoke about this I think in October, it had dipped down again. I don't know where it's currently at, but the general populace seemed unsatisfied by him. But his own, in terms of realpolitik within the firm, so to speak, that is Ukrainian government, he seems to have held his own at the moment, which I think is something that he needed. But again, right now where they're at, and we can see Korea getting involved in the front line, it is a wild time for Europe specifically. I think need to be very concerned right now. Ukraine need to be concerned. I mean, is that really who you want coming to the fore right now and to be on the front line? We're hearing reports of up to 6,000 North Korean troops who've either been killed or who have been injured on the front line. And we've seen Kim Jong-un come out and say, by the way, guys, I'd like to, spare a moment for those troops as well. So that Russian-North Korean link that is going on at the moment should be a real source of concern for everyone in Europe, especially for Ukraine right now, because who knows how that's going to pan out. 6,000 troops is the mere tip of the iceberg in terms of what North Korea could send to the front line in Russia.
No, absolutely. And it will be interesting to see how these trilateral talks go. Obviously, they've yielded no positive results as of yet, but once again, trying to look for some form of breakthrough. But thank you so much for your thoughts on that. Let's move on to another story now. And the US aircraft carrier Abraham Lincoln has been spotted in the Arabian Sea off the coast of Oman. Meanwhile, Iran has responded as their Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps begins military exercises in the Strait of Hormuz. Action from both sides comes as Iran's foreign minister arrives in Geneva for a second round of talks with the US tomorrow, with Washington continuing to put pressure on Tehran over its nuclear program. What are we expecting from the second round of talks, and what deals are potentially on the table? Because we haven't really got to the nitty-gritty of anything, have we?
Yes, well, we'll get to the deals, whether it be politically or even economically. But I mean, the expectations of these talks, they are definitely expected to be more serious, more technical, and more detailed. We shouldn't expect major breakthroughs, yet maybe some form of a partial deal might start to formulate, nuclear restraint from Iran in exchange for real or even partial lifting of sanctions. But there are definitely signals that these talks are becoming more serious and more positive. I mean, we've heard from the Iranians, first of all, they've sent a very high-profile official, the foreign minister, for these talks. Abbas Araghchi is also met Rafael Grossi, the Director General of IAEA. We have to note also that this all comes, or this meeting at least, comes after months of strained cooperation between Iran and the UN nuclear watchdog. Deputy Foreign Minister also in Iran signaled that Iran is ready to compromise on its nuclear program in return for sanctions relief. He said that to the BBC. Then you have another senior official who was talking about that Iran is ready to agree to dilute its highly enriched uranium, maybe to cap enrichment as well. So we are looking at slightly different talks than what we've used to, at least, or maybe they have matured enough to reach this level of possibly reaching some kind of a formalization,
And the US delegation is going to be Steve Witkoff and Jared
the
Kushner,
usual,
so also,
the usual. It's high profile also. Yeah, but when we talk about deals, if we're talking politically, as I said, there could be a partial nuclear for sanctions deal, as I said, to lower the enrichment or compromise on the enrichment from the Iranian side for sanction relief from the American side, or we could have freeze for freeze. They freeze the enrichment, freeze future or additional sanctions, or we can have also the economic side of it. Now, we've also heard from the Iranians saying that any deal should be lucrative and beneficial economically to both sides, the American side and the Iranian side, especially in oil, in aviation, in mineral investment. So we might see, maybe during these talks, more details are going to be hammered out regarding these deals. Maybe we'll start hearing about them in the next few days.
And Marco Rubio said over the weekend, he was at the Munich Security Conference giving a lot of sideline chats too, said Donald Trump prefers diplomacy when it comes to these talks with Iran. But we can't forget the military buildup that we're seeing in the region. It's not small, it's nothing, it's huge.
No, it is huge. The USS Abraham Lincoln in the Arabian Sea is a big deal as well, alongside other US carriers. That is a classic power projection more than anything else as well. That's a symbol of deterrence, and I think that's the key message that we're hearing here. Rubio said it, Trump has said it previously as well. Not just that, though, those guided missile destroyers in the region, there's combat ships, there's the Fifth Fleet, which operates out of Bahrain, which have made their way to the region as well, and Gerald R. Ford, that is also on the way, so we'll have two aircraft carriers in the region. That is a serious show of defence, and if that's something that Iran is looking at now, thinking, OK, we're going to go to the table, mainly because 150 miles off our coastline, these ships are ready and waiting, and they are within our reach, and they can do whatever we want. Keeping in mind that their enrichment, and this is a pre-2025, when we know that a lot of that nuclear capability was taken out. At that time, we were looking at 9,500 kgs. That's 9.5 to 10 tons of enriched uranium. And they reckon hundreds of more tons that are sitting there that are close to enrichment at 60%, which is terrifying to think that. But the carriers are not just symbolic. These are strike aircraft. That's what they're there for. They're missile defense systems that are in there as well. They're rapid response systems. It's pressure diplomacy is what we're seeing from Washington right now. I think it will work because, as Rawia said, Iran's going to come to the table. They might roll back on their enrichment program. We know that it suffered a devastating blow to their enrichment program last year when they were attacked. But Washington is saying, look, we want to have a deal. We prefer that. But we would be prepared for escalation if it's needed.
And what I find fascinating, back in 2015, Donald Trump withdrew from that US-Iran agreement, which did keep the enrichment at a level where they could still enrich uranium, but they couldn't produce a nuclear weapon. Donald Trump walked away from that agreement, agreed by Barack Obama.
They increased the enrichment.
The IAEA inspectors couldn't go in to keep a check on how much the grade uranium was being enriched at. And now, like you just explained, it's at these super high levels, and Donald Trump's almost going to have to make the same
deal. But that's the whole point, though. He pulled out of an agreement he didn't make, and he doesn't take credit for. Now he's trying to make a deal, probably as it's exactly the same deal as the nuclear deal in 2015, probably even less. But he will be the one who has done this deal and therefore claim the credit for it. But I think if we go back to the military presence in the region, I think the American signaling or the message is deterrence and readiness. But then again, the Iranian message is exactly the same. Deterrence and readiness.
Because the Iranian Revolutionary Guard is doing some military exercises in the Strait of Hormuz today. And we see all of this happening. It's kind of gesturing from both sides ahead of the talks. But absolutely fascinating, because this is so much happening in the region. And let's see how those talks go. Donald Trump, I think, wants to walk away with a win,
with a deal.
However, let's put it that way. Thanks for your thoughts on that. Let's move on now. And Savannah Guthrie has issued another plea for her mother's release 2 weeks after she disappeared. The US TV anchor spoke directly to the person or people involved, telling them it was never too late to do the right thing. Take a listen.
It's been 2 weeks since our mom was taken, and I just wanted to come on and say that we still have hope, and we still believe. To whoever has her or knows where she is, it's never too late. And you're not lost or alone. And we believe in the essential goodness of every human being.
Jono, I watched that video and it's absolutely heartbreaking.
It is.
You can just see the devastation on her face. And as we say, 2 weeks gone by and we don't seem any closer.
The family haven't given up hope, which I think is good. It seems like they've just said, right, let's do this public plea again. Let's humanise Nancy again as a person to the people who are responsible for this. Let's show you the victim and the victim's family. Keep the pressure on whoever is responsible in the hope that they might give way. Unfortunately, though, statistically speaking at least, the whole message, it's never too late to do the right thing. We're talking about a woman who's 85 years of age, who is known to have a chronic heart condition, who is on medication on a daily basis in order to maintain that heart condition as well. And we've had no proof of life being sent through, which has given you that level of hope for the family. 2 weeks is a very critical time, and I think in a missing person case of this level as well, families will cling on to any possible lead that they can, of which we've had a few, but nothing concrete that they've said, right, we can find her and she's still alive. And that, I think, is the issue. Most missing persons are recovered between the first couple of days is most crucial, and then you're kind of at a cap between day 10 and day 14, which is very, very unfortunate. But in the first 14 days, that's the most critical time. Aside and safe for any that are people who've run away themselves or people who are kids who've been taken, by their parents or by some other family member. But when it's an adult who's a missing person case, we're kind of at that critical window right now, which is devastating news for the family. But I feel that this perhaps is not going to end the way they would like it to end, unfortunately.
And I think that is such a scary thing because obviously, as we say, it's entering the third week now, this missing persons case. The FBI have been, of course, looking for leads, doing the best they can. They got that camera footage, which was so chilling. It was absolutely chilling, yeah, that camera footage. But they still haven't got a suspect. And also one thing I find fascinating, Rawia, no motive.
Absolutely.
So all seems to be quite a difficult picture that people are trying to piece together right now.
Yeah, because what makes sense, if it's a kidnapping, you would hear from the kidnappers. What do they want? Why was there a kidnapping in the first place? If they want money, they want whatever it is. But it doesn't seem to be that there is any motive. But I mean, that chilling scene that you talked about, we've seen it a while ago, is of the doorbell camera. It shows the suspect with he was masked with a backpack on his back with gloves. But these gloves are now the latest development in the investigation. Apparently, they have found a pair of gloves. They have sent the gloves for testing. They have found genetic material, or at least the DNA, basically, profile. They were doing DNA profiling, and they're waiting for their results, apparently. If the confirmation comes back with the genetic profile, then they will upload it to the FBI database for DNA samples to compare it to other samples that they have from, people who have been convicted or arrestees, or even different DNA samples that they found on crime scenes. So far, this is the most important development in this case. This glove, actually, when they found it, it was very strange because it was like finding a needle in a haystack, because they have found 16 other pairs of gloves in the area. But apparently, after investigation, it turned out that they are for people who have been searching for the missing lady, yet they have discarded these gloves in the vicinity of the area as well.
But I also find this fascinating. So I've been watching quite a lot of this story as it's unfolded. And you mentioned there, 16 gloves just disposed. They found a needle in the haystack with the one glove that matched that chilling CC footage we can see right now.
Yes, exactly this one.
What has been going on? Because it seems like every time there's so many camera crews at the house, people have just been walking over the property. It didn't have a police seal. You can go to the front door. Do you think that they just thought it was a kidnapping and they never actually... Was this just underestimated how serious this was?
Even if it's a kidnapping, surely the level of seriousness of this from the very get-go on this, I mean, from the very start of February when we spoke about this, it seemed like something was amiss with this entire story. And it feels that way. It still feels like there's something that doesn't quite make sense with all of this. You take an 85-year-old woman, you send a ransom video that's sent through, or a ransom note that's sent through. To TMZ and to the station that Savannah worked for. The whole thing just from the very start snowballed into something that was not a normal case. You would then think that FBI would go and do their due diligence to make sure that that crime scene was preserved to within an inch of where it had been when she disappeared. And that very much was not the case. But there just seems to be so many facets to this that we're still 2 weeks down the line with no real developments. And now we're thinking, well, what was the initial Bitcoin ransom request all about? Have we heard anything more about that? Do we know if there was any legitimacy? Was there any proof of life whatsoever 2 weeks later? And it seems that it is snowballed into this story where I don't see what the outcome's going to be here. I really don't. And it's gone on wild different theories at the moment that I can't figure out.
We might know more details within 24 hours because apparently after they upload the genetic profile that they found on these gloves, it takes about 24 hours, to check if it matches any of the information they have on their system.
And I do know over the weekend there were a few searches of houses in the area next to Nancy's home. A car was impounded, but those people were released. And I was thinking, why wasn't that done in the first sort of 48 hours? Kind of looks like they're working backwards. But of course, they might know a lot more than they're letting on. And that's normally the case. So thank you so much for your thoughts. Stay right there as we move on to another story now. And the historic cricket rivalry between India and Pakistan continued at the T20 World Cup when the captains did not shake hands during the toss, continuing India's no handshake policy against Pakistan. India continued their dominance of Pakistan in the competition with a 61-run victory in Colombo, securing them a place in the Super 8 stage. Actually, I'm going to admit, I feel like this is a pretty incredible story. They actually played each other. India won by 61 runs. I think people were celebrating that all weekend. But we can't talk about this story, India and Pakistan playing cricket, without knowing what the background is to the story. Politically, it's a big, deep, long background.
Well, definitely. I mean, the India-Pakistan cricket rivalry has become so politicized that you almost cannot separate it from the 7-decade hostilities between the two countries. But it all started in 1947 with the traumatic partition of British India. Of course, that created the two sovereign states, India and Pakistan, yet there was so much violence. There was a lot of also the largest mass migration recorded in history happened because of that separation, and therefore there was a lot of lasting scars because of it. Since 1947 until today, they fought 3 wars against each other.
And had a little skirmish, you remember, last year.
They had many
always, little skirmishes.
Exactly. They're like standoffs, military standoffs at the border. But they fought 3 wars, 65, in 71, and in 1999. So, they have a long history of rivalry and, political tension between them. And it has always been reflecting in sports as well, even though they keep playing each other, and they probably will keep playing each other. I mean, can you imagine a World Cup in football without Argentina or Brazil? It's the same thing for cricket when it comes to India and Pakistan.
Yeah.
And their love for cricket. The nations absolutely love cricket. I think we cannot underestimate, cricket is an absolute obsession there. But it's not only the fact that they won't stop playing cricket against each other, it's the fact that the ICC,
wouldn't let them.
Of course, the International Cricket Council, it's their biggest commercial revenue. It brings in sponsors, it brings in viewership, it brings in everything. Why are they going to say, oh, we'll put them on the different side of the draw? Of course they're not going to do that.
We're talking about $250 million they would generate in revenue for one World Cup match between the two countries. $250 million.
Way more than the likes of the Super Bowl.
In terms of viewership, you would have 350 million people tuning in to watch this cricket match between the two countries, which is more than double the Super Bowl. The Super Bowl was 155 million. So we're talking about, there's a lot of pressure from these international cricket governing bodies that, of course, they're not going to give up all of that revenue. They're going to find a way to make these two teams play. And they did. I mean, they did put some regulations in. They will play on neutral ground. There will be extra security. There will be crowd control. They will put the two, teams in different accommodation, different transportation to try and segregate them as much as possible until they meet each other on the field. So yeah, they'll definitely keep playing each other.
And Jono, we've just been talking about it, how hard it is to separate sports from politics,
well,
because
I think theoretically you can't.
Yeah.
That's the issue, isn't
Yeah.
it? But people love to see a match of things where they just think, oh, this is, and the ICC fully aware of that and say, right, sport is symbolic. Sport is about a stack of things, but when you break it down, it's about emotions, because people get very riled up about sport, and it's about nationalism or nationalistic feelings within the fans, and I think that's the important thing here. But it's not just the ICC. I mean, if you look at Six Nations, will historically and traditionally always put an England versus Ireland game as close to possible as St. Patrick's Day, because they know that that is going to get the fans riled up. We see it again, we've seen it, I mean, I don't know if it's necessarily the same with UEFA, but UEFA will also plan out matches where they just think, this one's going to be controversial. Let's put the two of these together and see if this creates a bit of a reaction. We get attention, like for the UEFA Nations League. I mean, not unheard of, but certainly down the ranks when it comes to footing in terms of how much people care about it. And then they put on Ireland versus Israel. It kicks off massively because they were, we're not going to play them here. We want it on neutral ground. And it just created this massive drama. Now all of a sudden everyone knows that the UEFA Nations League is, which I don't think many people did before that. I think that is what it is. Same applies with Mike Tyson and Jake Paul. You put the two of them in it's creating this drama about it. That is what makes the ICC go, right, let's do it again. And the fans
love it.
They love it.
They love it.
And they're wild. Yeah, absolutely.
They're wild.
Olympic boycotts.
Absolutely wild.
Russia suspension, symbolic gestures like Ukraine do when they're playing matches as well. We see it, and I think it goes hand in hand. You cannot separate church and state when it comes to sport. It simply doesn't work. The two are intertwined.
But then we must remember something, that sport can be very unifying. I think, if you look at the World Cup that was held in South Africa in 1997, there's been movies on it called Invictus. Nelson Mandela became the first black president of South Africa. It was the end of apartheid. Francois Pienaar was the captain of the Springboks. They went on to win the Rugby World Cup, and that said to have unified a rainbow nation. That was a very symbolic moment. And cricket diplomacy, we never know what that could yield either. And my producer, Lucy, is Scottish, and she said, I don't know, you might know this, Jono, they play Braveheart at the beginning of a rugby match.
I think for the Scottish fans, but much like we don't.
Oh,
play...
night before.
Oh, the night before. I mean, for Ireland.
Seriously, the movie.
Ireland is both north and the south that will play for the Ireland team, so they'll play Ireland's call, not the actual Aron the V in the national anthem when they play a rugby match, because we have both sides of the country will play. But I think you said it's unifying. I think it's also
it's so unifying.
It's a showmanship. It is again. It's very divisive, but it can be very unifying as something.
But we must also remember that a lot of these sportsmen actually get on off the pitch. You'll probably find that some of them historically do have relationships, even though they come from rival groups. And they would have grown up in some teams together. There's always a camaraderie-ship in sport.
To be honest, I've read an interesting story now, the names escape me, of two players, and they used to play cricket before the separation in India in 1947. And they learned to play cricket together. And then when the separation happens, they both became the stars, one for India and the other one for Pakistan, because one of them was Indian and the other one was Pakistani, or Muslim and Hindu. And it said that it basically, politics through sport sports can actually break friendships as well.
Yeah.
And they, you know, the two guys who grew up together, learned the sport together, didn't talk to each other and probably didn't play against each other.
But with tennis, and you'd mentioned this earlier, there's no love lost between a lot of international tennis players who won't shake hands on the tennis court, and that doesn't make international headlines. But you don't have the level of, I think it's the fans that create the level of drama that we're experiencing here as well, and they're not going into each other with 7 shades, you know, so that's going to be the difference between the two.
Absolutely, and it's normally Ukrainian and Russian or Ukrainian and Belarusian tennis opponents who choose not to shake each other's hands. It was a bit controversial, but I think now people have got more and more used to it happening because it's been happening for almost 4 years now.
Yeah.
But very interesting. I love how sports always brings politics into the show, but thank you so much. Now, it's that time of the show where Jono and Rawia have chosen 2 of their quirkiest stories of the day, and I might just say they're both about pets. Let's start with yours.
So you're very happy.
Yeah, I love it. Let's start with yours. So, we both have dogs, of course, Jono, and some say they would donate a kidney to their dog. Would you? Should we?
That depends on which one. No.
Which dog?
Which dog? 16% of us would give up our kidney for 2 more years with our dog. And I think if it was physically possible, I think 2 more years is...
The question, are you from the 16%?
Nice.
Or are you?
I got to be honest, I think I would be.
Yeah.
But the amount of people, and this is, I think we're in this, almost half of us say they worry more about their pet's health than their own. 30% said their dog offers them more unconditional love than any of their family members, including their spouse.
That is true.
Yeah, I think
Amazing.
that's so true. Because I think, my dog's always come before my boyfriend. Oh, yeah, for sure. He knows that anyway. But I think what's absolutely fascinating, we talk about donating a kidney for our dogs hypothetically, and I probably would do it. But also, before I got dogs, if someone told me the amount of money I would spend to save my dog or to make my dog well, I would never believe them.
No,
but
it is
the love you
and I think I always say that vets play up on this because the first sign of even a microscopic vomit, I'm immediately at the vets. Yeah. And I think if it's a child or if it's human or if it's your wife or it's your husband, you're just thinking, oh, they'll be fine by the morning. When it's the dog, you're at the vets. And that's why we think more about our dogs.
Vet on speed dial.
We spent 4 months, the last 4 months of our dog's life, just caring for the dog, trying to avoid to, put him to sleep in whichever way we can. But yeah, the amount of money, the amount of effort, the time that you put in, you'd be surprised, definitely.
Yeah, we're putting thought and effort. I think it's post-pandemic as well. That's been one of the things that we took away from it that was a positive, is that we've now built up this companionship that's taken on a deeper psychological role within our lives. And I think
with dogs,
100%
seriously.
Pets fill that gap. And any vet who ever says, and has said to me about a cat or a dog, now is the time to put them to sleep. I keep thinking, if it was my grandmother, I'd probably not. So I'm not going to do it with a dog or a cat because they're a family member.
And I feel the same way. Like, I feel like I've had my little dog, one of them, for 12 years, and I couldn't imagine my life without them, Yeah, I must admit, would our dogs give a kidney for us, though?
Absolutely not. Trade you for a treat. Done.
My one dog would trade me, my other one definitely would keep me. And Rawia, we're going to stick with the animal theme.
Yes.
And yours is about the UK's chief mouser.
Oh, I love
That's
that
Larry.
term. Yes, I love the way the cat has been described. The little mouse, the chief mouser. So he is the leader of the other cats that chase mice at 10 Downing Street, apparently. He's been there for 15 years, and he was adopted in 2011. And basically, there was a tribute with different pictures, dating back to 15 years, throughout the 15 years of Larry in 10 Downing Street, sometimes greeting delegations, sometimes just lounging in the sun or in the spotlight on the window, as we can see from all the pictures. But my favorite was a picture of Larry, I think it's from the indoors, from inside 10 Downing Street, just looking out the window, and the pose of that cat, honestly, it was fit for presidents and prime ministers.
Well, I used to do quite a lot of reporting outside of 10 Downing Street, and the best part of it was Larry. That's all literally, I waited for a prime minister to resign and walk out of 10 Downing Street, but everyone was taking pictures of Larry.
Yes.
Yeah.
He lived through 6 prime ministers.
I mean, he's
attend
had a
Downing
bit of a
Street.
run because they've had a run of prime ministers. But he's had like allegiances to some and not to others.
Oh, yeah, he
like
didn't-
Theresa May wasn't a fan.
Boris Johnson tried to pick him up, wasn't
Not a fan.
Seriously?
So I don't know, is he Labour? Is he a Green Party? Do we know where he...
Well, his political stance.
No,
I don't have any idea. What is he? Well, I think he's just like, feed me, isn't he? He doesn't care. As long as you're in there. Look at him. But how many followers do you think Larry has on social media? Because he's got a Twitter account and he's got the whole
I didn't know he was
get-up.
on social.
know.
I didn't know he was on social.
881,000 followers.
Oh my God. Oh my
Larry.
Probably win
goodness.
the election.
Wow.
To be
I know,
fair.
I know.
And do a good job, like, let's be honest.
Do a good job, yes.
He's done a good job at keeping the mice under control at Downing
Not the rats, though.
And
Not
that's
Not the rats
And
or the
that's
snakes.
why he's the chief mouser.
He's the
I
chief
love the
mouser.
term, chief mouser.
Look at him. Isn't he
Very
beautiful?
cute, very cute.
Oh.
But I must say, I used to be a cat person. After having dogs, I've turned.
So guess what? I think you can be a both.
You can. You
I
can,
don't know.
100%.
You can be a both.
There's
cat
Larry
dog
proving it.
person.
15's good innings for a cat, by the way, as well. So.
Yeah, very-
And he's an outdoor cat, so
But
that's
he
good.
was, I think, rescued when they reckon he was around 4 years old from Battersea Dogs and Cats Home.
And he's now
Oh, so
15
he's
years doing the job, so he's a
19.
19-year-old
Yeah.
cat.
I like
And
that doing the job, 15
there's not
on the
been
job for
anyone in
15
Downing
years.
Street for that length of time since Thatcher. It's impressive.
I know, it is impressive.
That's Larry for you.
There we are, Larry, the longest-lasting Downing Street member ever. Thanks to our guest today, broadcaster Jono Hayes and senior presenter Rawia Alami. And that's all from us on W News Extra. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Of course, follow us on X. G&T will be coming up next. Goodbye and good evening.